Dave Lochran, Adam Shaw. 8 games on a Wednesday. I'll tell you what, Adam, we had some news earlier in the day. Basically, the entire Pelicans team is out. Holiday's the only player on this in the starting lineup that was on the opening day starting lineup, so that tells you something. Kyrie Irving's out. Jamal Murray's still out. Anthony Davis, Etuan Moore, Julius Randle, Elfrid Payton, Tyreek Evans, Jeff Teague. You got a lot of red, a lot of big O's next to these names. And then we've still got some question marks when it comes to Jaren Jackson Jr. with that illness, food poisoning, we've heard. Gary Harris, Tyler Johnson, Dwayne Wade, Zach LaVine. We're still waiting on a decent amount as we get closer to lock.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting slate. I think it's one of the tougher ones we've had, but tough like in a fun way because a lot of the value has been the value for 3 or 4 games now, so they're getting more expensive. As of right now, we haven't had anyone just like drop dead that wasn't expected to give us, a $3,500 kind of must play guy. So right now, I'm pretty excited for it. I'm getting tired of those 70% owned guys that you kind of just have to have.
Yeah, pretty much. I was pretty surprised when I checked their ownership projections to see that the Jokic was expected to be so low owned compared to the field. I mean, 19% I think on DraftKings. But we'll talk about all of that. And first, we'll start with the 7:30 lock, by the way. If you're wondering why we're getting started late, and if you potentially thumbs down the video because we started late, we're not starting late. It's a 7:30 lock. So here we are. We'll get our time in for 8 games, but try and give us just enough. And then we'll leave it for the live before lock crew at 6:30. Today will be Eddie and Chris, just as it was yesterday. All right. So, Adam, we've got Boston at home hosting the Charlotte Hornets. 7-point favorites, 215 total. No Kyrie Irving. Terry Rozier's price has come up, but he's playing solid minutes. And then you've got guys like Jaylen Brown, Marcus Morris, Jason Tatum, Al Horford. Pretty popular plays the other day. It appears as though you're not going to see. They're going to be popular. But guys like Al Horford probably won't be as popular. Rozier not as popular now that their prices have come up. But right now on DraftKings, we have Brown and Tatum with the 4th and 5th highest projected ownership on DraftKings, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, Tatum was really popular last slate too, like 40% owned and was absolutely awful. If he comes in that high again today, I am pretty confident I'll be under the field again just because I ran some crunches before the show and that's what was happening. Not that I dislike Tatum, just I don't think that he's, someone that should be really that popular on this particular slate. I do like Jaylen Brown for the discount. He played about 30 minutes last game. I have him at 28 here, but obviously he could get more. But I think that the price tag's affordable for him. I like Smart, who actually got some backup point guard minutes last game too. We saw Wanamaker only play like 7 or 8 minutes. He had been in prior games without Irving. He had been taking all the backup point guard minutes. Him only getting those 7 or 8 minutes allowed Smart to play more, and it allowed Jaylen Brown to play more. And then you got Smart just kind of with the ball in his hands a little bit. So I like both of those guys, but Horford's still my favorite play here. The price tag's gone up a little bit, but you have him with a 26% assist percentage this season without Kyrie on the floor, 20% usage. He should play somewhere around 30 to 32 minutes in a very favorable matchup against the Charlotte front court. If people are going to shy away from him because his price tag went down, especially on DraftKings where you can roster him in power forward.
Price tag went up.
Yeah, sorry, up. Then I still think he's a good play.
Yeah, I have no issues at all with Al Horford. Center position's got plenty of value, plenty of talent as it does most days. Horford's still somebody that I'll be targeting today. And one of the reasons that you're going to see Horford be less popular is because you're probably going to see somebody like Jahlil Okafor seeing a decent amount. It doesn't have to be a ton, but enough at a similar price point. A few guys in a similar price range. Willie Cauley-Stein being another one that we didn't have as much of that on Monday. Now we do. So there are a few guys, slightly less expensive than Horford that will definitely get some ownership off of him. I'll tell you what, though, and I agree with you on Horford. I think Rozier is perfectly reasonable too. The question is, and I'll ask you right now because I feel I have a pretty solid stance. I like both of these guys, but one I have a preference towards. On DraftKings, Darren Collison 6,200, Rozier 6,100. Who do you prefer?
In my initial crunch, I got 15% Rozier. I got, wow, like no Collison. 6% Collison. 6% Collison.
Okay. See, that's a little surprising to me, only because when I look at this, well, you know what, we'll get to the Pacers shortly, but basically that entire starting lineup is just nobody that can pass, nobody with any relevant usage. 6% and 15% Rozier. Okay, I do like Collison more than Rozier.
Yeah, I think I Collison projected a little low too. Now that I look at it more.
What do you have him projected at?
I just bumped his usage a little bit. I had it at like 17%. I just got it up to about 18.5. Because we'll talk about that when we get to that game. Yeah. But yeah,
I mean, I think guys like Jaylen Brown are fine. Tatum though, I don't know, man. I'm having a tough time getting there on Jason Tatum, especially if he's going to have 25 or higher percent ownership on this slate. That's tough. And you pretty much said the same thing. I just had a tougher time getting there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that there are guys around them that I like also, and that compared to Boston guys, I think he probably plays a couple less minutes than Rozier at a similar price tag. He's more expensive than Morris. He's more expensive than Smart. He's more expensive than Brown. All these guys are in good spots, but Tatum's not a significantly better point per minute producer than any of these guys, and he doesn't normally play monster minutes. Like if you're going to get around 30 minutes from Smart, around 30 minutes from Brown, and like 32 minutes from Tatum, he's normally not worth the extra price, especially if it's coming with high ownership.
Right, exactly. That's why I was surprised to see this, given that he's 5,800 on DraftKings. It's not like he's egregiously overpriced at all. 66 on FanDuel, but Brown is a lot cheaper. And Marcus Morris is also quite a bit cheaper. And as you pointed out, from a per minute basis, even a minute standpoint, it's not like Tatum's playing 38 minutes a game. He's getting low 30s. So that's where I'm at. On the Charlotte side, there isn't much I'm getting to here. Or is there anyone for Charlotte that's standing out to you as a strong play?
No. Like on DraftKings in that crunch, I ended up with like 6% Hernan Gomez, and that might be my highest owned Charlotte guy, actually.
Okay. Yeah, Charlotte, there's just not much here for me. And when you look at some of the comparably priced players, even to Kemba Walker, who, his price has come down, we're just not getting the numbers from Kemba right now. And it's not to say that he can't do it. I just don't know if this is the night where I want to, roll the dice on him actually doing it.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep point guard slate too. Marvin Williams came in at 7% for me on DraftKings, so it's like everyone's sub 10% in that crunch, and it's like Marvin Williams, Hernan Gomez, and then even less of Lamb and Kemba. All right,
let's move on then, if you want to, onto the next game here.
Yep.
Miami and Chicago. You've got the Heat at home here against a bad Chicago team, but we don't know what the situation is on Zach LaVine yet. So this is very much worth paying attention to. The same goes for Miami, where Wade and Tyler Johnson are also questionable. So there are some big question marks in this game right now. The Miami Heat at home are favored by 10.5 points, 207.5 total. Do you have interest in guys like Winslow, who's been handling some point guard responsibilities recently, actually for a while now, or Richardson or Whiteside? To me, by the way, I'm always willing to gamble on Whiteside that he's going to have one of those games. But just a week ago, he was 6K flat. Now he's up to 7,500. It's a whole lot harder, and 81 on FanDuel. It's a lot harder for me to say, the ceiling is there when his price keeps increasing despite playing like less than 25 minutes and I don't know what, 9 of his last 10, 8 of his last 10.
And I mean, it's obviously an appealing matchup, but the whole thing with Whiteside is that when his price tag comes down, he gives you a ton of upside in those rare games where he actually gets to play like 30 minutes. You don't want to pay for close to the production he's going to give you and then just normally not get it, especially on a slate like this where, obviously we're still waiting on Nurkic news, but with Nurkic and Jokic and Gobert and Towns and Okafor and Horford, there's no lack of centers at really any price point here, especially, mid-range and at the top. So I just I don't see myself getting the Whiteside. If he goes out there and puts up 50 plus, then, congrats for the 3% of the field that has him. Right. Winslow, though, I am getting to. I like, again, he's a small forward. Or on DraftKings, he has small forward eligibility. On FanDuel, he's a small forward. Should play 34 to 36 minutes in a really nice matchup. If Wade is out, that's potentially even more usage for Winslow. But he's just been really productive since taking over at point guard. So I like him. And then if Tyler Johnson is in, I like him as well. There's not really a ton of great value on this slate so far. It would be a really nice matchup for Johnson, who should probably play, around 34 minutes with, especially if Wade is out and you have Derek Jones Jr. obviously out.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. And Derek Jones Jr., he's out for a while now, so we won't be seeing him. I think he's not even going to be reevaluated for another 5 weeks or something, 5 or 6 weeks. But it's still, to me, the Johnson news is kind of big because he was getting starts and playing 30 plus minutes before the injury. I don't know what to make of this. I think the way I see it is, regardless of whether or not Johnson and Wade play, Winslow is still safe. He's still going to get the run. Could he see a few additional minutes if they're out? Yeah, but he's still going to play 30 plus. Aside from that, it gets a little bit difficult. Last time, Wayne Ellington started, and we've seen this when Wayne Ellington starts in place of, whoever it is. Whenever he starts, he plays like 30 minutes or more. And this could be after not playing for a month straight. I believe he had 0 fantasy points through the first half of last game and finished with 22. He had 19 points in the second half. If they're out, I would expect him to start again and probably play another 30, 35 minutes, Adam. Honestly, I wouldn't surprise me if he starts.
Yeah, if they're out, I would expect him to start and play basically as many minutes as he can handle. And on this particular slate, it would make him a pretty appealing option.
He's $3,500. I mean, with a Wayne Ellington, you're essentially just hoping that, and 37 on FanDuel, you're just hoping that he can hit some of his shots because the peripherals. I mean, he played 31 minutes, right? He had 1 rebound, 0 assists, 0 blocks, and 0 steals. That's pretty incredible. Like, that's difficult to do. That's worse than Darius Miller type production right there. So,
that's actually what I was going to. That's what I was going to say. Is he's basically a lower owned Darius Miller if he gets the start because Johnson and Wade are out.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what it is. On the Chicago side, Lauri Markkanen, man, he's been rebounding really well lately. Last game, he had 19 rebounds last game, 15 rebounds prior to that. Really ridiculous given what we'd seen from him in the past. Not to say he was a terrible rebounder, but this is out of control right now. And he's playing well. He's getting up shots. His usage is good enough. Playing in a lineup with Zach LaVine. Chris Dunn's usage really doesn't put a dent in it anymore. And Robin Lopez and whoever else they decide to run out there. But he's 67 on DraftKings, Markkanen on FanDuel has come up to 7,400. Do you have any love for anybody on Chicago, assuming Zach LaVine is active?
Assuming LaVine's in, then no, not really. They all just kind of grade out as completely neutral or slightly below average plays for me on a slate where there are plenty of mid-range plays that I like. So I don't really see getting to much of anything from this team. Someone in chat just asked about Parker. He played like 22 and a half minutes last game, but he's stuck because he's not going to play the 3. Like Boylan's made that very, very clear. And you have Markkanen, Portis, and Lopez as of right now very clearly in the rotation. So there's only so many minutes that Parker can get.
Right. If LaVine does happen to sit this one out, it could get a little bit interesting then because he is such a high usage player. You're talking about a guy that on most nights, almost every night, is taking between 15 and 22 shots on a slow-paced Bulls team. They're actually up in pace over a little bit since Boylan took over, but nothing significant. Markkanen with LaVine off the floor has a 27% usage rate and is producing 1.14 fantasy points per minute in 303 minutes. I would be willing to look at Markkanen if LaVine is out. I don't see any way that the Miami Heat keep this close, but or Chicago keeps this close, but really doesn't matter. I don't think many people expected a Pelicans skeleton crew to roll into Houston and beat them on the road yesterday. So
Yeah.
I would like marketing if Levine is out. I think you see usage uptick quite a bit in that spot.
Yeah, yesterday was a pretty nice slate for those of us that don't try and guess where they're going to be blowouts. But yeah, so if Levine sits, I don't think that you get a huge bump for anyone outside of this main group. Like I think you would see like a few more minutes for Harrison, a few more minutes for potentially Selden, for Arcidiacono. Probably nothing to make these guys useful in DFS. But I agree with you on Markkanen and Dunn. They've played 179 minutes together this season without Levine on the floor. Dunn's averaged 1.14 points per minute with a 28% usage rate. Markkanen's at 1.17.
Oh, sorry. Go. I have different numbers. Go ahead.
Markkanen at 1.17 with a 26% usage rate. Both of them, obviously become very productive plays if Levine sits.
Yeah, absolutely. I had just Markkanen on, Levine off, and then the minutes. But both of them have been very productive in that respect, and it's no surprise. Levine is one of the highest usage players in the league. Even with them back, he's still maintaining heavy usage, so that would make them more appealing. Is it the best matchup with Miami? No, but you'll take the volume, you'll take the added usage and roll with it because they're not priced to Levine being out, and that makes them pretty appealing. But I would also agree with you in saying that I'm not trying to figure out who could get the extra minutes and who's going to be the one to benefit from Levine not named Markkanen and Dunn. I think at that point it's really just roulette. And look, Wayne Selden is already like $4,300. He's already playing solid minutes, and he wasn't in the picture already. 38 on FanDuel, but to me, it's just that's too much of a dart throw. There's none of these guys are reliable enough, especially on a night where we do have a lot of value, for me to even take a guess there.
Yeah, I agree. So I said if Levine sits, then I don't really have interest in anyone outside of Levine and Dunn, Markkanen and Dunn. Shaq Harrison at 3,300. If he gets to like 26 minutes, I think ends up being good enough. So I guess you could get some of him mixed in with your like Tim Frazier, Frank Jackson type guys.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I'll end up getting there. But we'll see. Do we have any updates on Levine?
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I didn't see any news on shoot around either. So, well, I guess we'll stay tuned. We still got plenty of time. Let's talk about Dallas and the New York Knicks. Unless, of course, you wanted to talk about this center rotation for Chicago. But at this point, I mean, I don't even know if Jim Boylan knows what he's doing when it comes to the minute distribution between Portis and Lopez.
Right, and then you factor in that yesterday Lopez only played like 19 minutes, but it wasn't like Portis got a few more, but you had Parker pick up minutes too. So, yeah, I have no idea. I have Portis at 24 minutes. I have Lopez at like 18. I have Parker at 20, and I have Markkanen at 34.
Right. In a perfect world, if they're splitting the minutes, Portis plays 29 minutes when Lopez is only playing 29. But that wasn't the case. And that just muddies the waters even further and makes it a spot where I just have no interest in even guessing anymore. Plus, it's not exactly a premier spot either. Maybe if it was against the Kings or the Clippers or the Hawks, we could discuss it. But
Portis is also still almost $6,000. So
right, exactly. Well, exactly. There's just there's no real point in even trying to figure that out. Dallas on the road, Madison Square Garden, facing the New York Knicks. The Mavs are 7-point road favorites here. Luka Doncic triple doubles in 2 of his last 4 games. The kid's just been outrageously good. He is outrageously good. And flat out, he's even with Dennis Smith back. Doncic has been spectacular, and you look at this kid's numbers, and he's a kid since the start of the new year, since the start of January. He's just putting up huge numbers: 33.2% usage, 37% assist rate, 13.5% rebounding rate, 1.44 fantasy points per minute. Really think about that for a player at his position. Not only does he have 33% usage and 37% assists, but almost a 14% rebounding rate. These numbers are out like otherworldly. And if you were to put Dennis Smith Jr. on the floor, he's still averaging 1 1/3 fantasy points per minute. Doncic is. And now he's got a matchup against the second worst defensive team in the entire league that is actively trying to lose basketball games. It's a slate, Adam, where, outside of Nikola Jokic, and we could throw Drew Holiday in there as well, you don't have priority top shelf players unless Towns is someone you're prioritizing heavily. But even so, no Anthony Davis, no James Harden, Westbrook, none of them. So paying even 8,800, which is not a lot for Doncic on a night like this, isn't really that outrageous. He is more expensive on FanDuel, but my God, he's been outstanding. Where do you stand on Doncic here?
I love Doncic here. You mentioned the Knicks being like the second worst defensive team. They're also missing their best on-ball defender in Frank Ntilikina, so they should be even worse and an even better matchup for someone like Doncic. We just updated ownership projections, and this is I was really interested to see what direction this went, because early in the day we had Drew and Doncic with basically identical ownership. Now we have Drew at 30% on DraftKings, the third highest owned player on the slate. We have Doncic at 18. If that's the case, at least I'm hoping that my stuff basically ends up flipped. And worst case, I'm just way overweight on Doncic, because I love Drew also, but this is just such a good spot for Doncic. He's just an absolutely phenomenal player. We've seen him, obviously just really step things up as he's gotten more familiar with the NBA. And you mentioned that he hasn't struggled with Dennis Smith Jr. since Smith came back. I think that his relative struggles with Dennis Smith earlier in the year were more a product of him being a 19-year-old getting his first taste of the NBA than anything to do with Dennis Smith Jr. So I absolutely love Doncic. I know he's more expensive on FanDuel, but I think he's still a good play there. Obviously, just not as good a play as he is on DraftKings, where he's multi-position eligible with a double-double, triple-double bonus in a phenomenal spot. I can't find a single reason not to like Luka here.
100%. I said the same thing a few weeks ago when people were talking about the whole Dennis Smith Jr. thing. And the honest answer is, does Dennis Smith make a difference? Does it make him less productive? It's very possible, but it's very hard to take that sample from earlier in the year, compare it to this one, and say, all right, the kid's never played in the NBA before, and we're going off of his first couple months in the National Basketball Association after being coming to a new country, playing basketball with the best in the world, and he's still excelling. But it's really hard to gauge that when it's his rookie season. Like, maybe he's just getting better as the season goes on because he's really talented.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think he does lose a little bit of productivity with Dennis Smith Jr. on the floor.
From an assist rate standpoint, right, especially.
But it doesn't make it's not to say it makes him unproductive. It makes him go from otherworldly to godly. It's still just insanely good.
Right. So he has a 37% assist rate without him, and probably a 32% assist rate with him. Still really good rates, especially given the fact that this dude, Adam, is rebounding. You're talking about a guy that's playing the wing positions and rebounding, as good as some centers in the league, which just makes him that much more appealing every damn night.
Right.
So Lil Soupy says, speaking of Doncic, do you play him at point guard or small forward on DraftKings? I don't know. I haven't done it yet, but if you're making lineups, you're not crunching and you're making individual lineups. I mean, just the easy answer for me, and you can answer as well, Adam, but the easy answer for me is small forward tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said in chat too. I'm going to have him at both positions. Obviously, I'm playing a lot of lineups. But in general, whenever you can roster a center at power forward or a point guard at small forward or something like that outside of slates, that are just different in nature. But on most slates, that's just the better way to go if you're hand building a lineup and trying to maximize upside.
Right, for sure. Aside from Doncic, anything in Dallas that stands out to you? I can tell you, for me, the answer there is no. I haven't found any reason to get to these guys, even the Wesley Matthews and such.
Yeah, I mean, nothing as a priority, just guys that are kind of sprinkled into my lineups, because it is still a ridiculously good matchup for the rest of these guys. It's just that Luka is an absolute top priority for me on the entire slate. And then the rest of these guys are okay, it wouldn't be surprising if they get 6 times their salary.
Yeah, Luka head and shoulders better than anybody on this team, and it's not even remotely close. I do want to talk about Burke. I had put out a bunch of concerns about him last game, and those fears became a reality because Fizdale's his coach, and good old Kadeem Allen got his first action of the season. And Burke just wasn't good. He got out of the gate slow and played less than 9 minutes in the first half. Didn't see the court in the second quarter. And then in the second half, it's not. This is not to say he made up for it. Don't get me wrong, because he didn't. But Trey Burke in the second half of this game, Adam, played almost 7 minutes in the third quarter, and then he played 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. So about 16 minutes. If he plays that same rotation in the first half, you're talking 32 minutes here. And I don't think it's crazy to assume that maybe Kadeem Allen doesn't play 18 minutes today. I'll say the same thing I said the other day. And I was actually a lot lower on him than I am today because his projected ownership was ungodly high. Trey Burke could still see 30 minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised. And compared to where we had his projected ownership, well above, where he came in at like 60% in some spots, we have him at 18% now. What do you make of this Knicks team starting at the point? Whoa, Dwayne Wade ruled out. I'll tell you once we get Tyler Johnson news immediately. I might cut you off, but it'll be quick, and then I'll let you get right back to it. Okay. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Knicks here?
I'm with you on Burke. I like him more than I expected to today. I expected to look at the Knicks rotation and just, be really annoyed and not have any idea. But for one, he played almost 26 minutes last game, which I didn't realize. Right. I didn't feel that way because he was so bad. But that's obviously nice that, we hated the minutes that he played, and he still played, almost 26.
And he didn't touch the court in the second quarter. Right. I mean, that doesn't seem natural when you play a 7-minute rotation in the third and then a 9 in the fourth.
Right. And if you look at Popcorn Machine, and it's
Tyler Johnson's playing, by the way. Floor is yours. Well, he's warming up with the intention to play. So Johnson in, Wade out. Wanted to get that out of the way.
Right. Yeah, so I like Tyler Johnson.
Me too.
Okay, so and one of the things you should look at when you use Popcorn Machine and you're looking at minutes is see if you can come up with a reason why maybe something happened. The Knicks went on a 19-7 run with that second unit in there. Trey Burke played bad in his stint, and then the Knicks were playing well. Kadeem Allen was playing well. Hazonia was playing well. It makes sense for Burke not to have come back in at that point. It doesn't necessarily mean that Fizdale's plan was for Burke just to not play there. So exactly. I have him projected for 30 minutes here. He could get less. He could get more. If he played that same stint in the second quarter he did in the fourth, he gets to almost 34 minutes. So, I have him projected at 30. I think that's a pretty nice middle ground for him. I have no issue being around the field at 18%. If I come in a little over that, I think I'm okay there too.
Right. And you bring up a good point. You look at when you go to Popcorn Machine, you're clicking on game flow. Don't just look at the minutes. Look at that line that goes up and down and zigzags, because it can tell a large part of the story. How useful is that when you're trying to figure out why guys got or lost minutes in a blowout? You use it literally every day.
Yeah, you should be looking at fouls to see if that's why they subbed out, if they had a short rotation. And if there's a really weird unit that played more minutes than normal, a lot of times if you look, it's because they were on some insane run and the coach just didn't want to switch it up.
Right. And if you look at this, the Knicks were actually leading going into the fourth quarter. And then the Hornets just trashed them over the first few minutes. So Kadeem Allen, Damian Dotson, Alonzo Trier, Mitchell Robinson, and Hazonia, all of those guys who were in as that was happening, all got pulled, and the starting lineup came back out with Vonleh and Burke being the first two back in. I think it's still very possible that Burke plays 30 minutes. I will say this much, though, Adam. This is just the truth. And this was my concern the other day as well, but the ownership differential is so big so vast from last week or last game that I'm not as concerned about it. Fizdale is the type of guy that if you're Trey Burke, and he already seems to have some type of vendetta against him, if you're Trey Burke and you go out and you jack up 6 shots and you brick all of them, you might not play in the second quarter. So there is that risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we were just saying about the rotations last game and popcorn machine just goes to show how wide the range is on these guys because he's going to play the hot hand. There's no stars on this team
Mhm.
where he's going to be like, okay, you're going back in there, even though this guy is playing really well right now. So like you're dealing with that, and it just gives you a wider range of outcomes.
Exactly. Okay. Any thoughts elsewhere on, you have Vonleh, colossal disappointment last game, but I will say this much: he still played 35 minutes. He still got his 35 minutes. Um, in his Cantor, well, he's not playing anymore. And then you have, Hazonia played another 25 minutes after playing 30 minutes after not playing in 2 straight games. And then basically Kevin Knox uh, and Tim Hardaway, who we liked quite a bit last game, got out of the gate super hot. Still didn't have a rough game at all, 38 fantasy points. But is there anyone else on this Knicks team to you that you like, or is it mostly Burke?
It's mostly Burke. I got around 10 to 12% Vonleh in that crunch. The minutes are nice. I still have him projected for 32 here, just because I still feel confident that Robinson, only plays like 12 or 13 minutes very consistently. Um, it's also kind of a scary matchup for Vonleh with DeAndre Jordan. So I'm not getting a ton of him, but I think he's okay. Hazonia is kind of the opposite of Trey Burke. Like, I think the normal rotation will be for him to get 18 to 20 minutes. If he's playing really well or that second unit's playing well, he can obviously get more. But I don't think I'm going to really end up getting there. So Burke's the only guy that I got with any sort of frequency from the Knicks here.
Yeah, me too. I think Vonleh's fine. Not on Hardaway here, and we can move on. I still think Hazonia plays probably 25 minutes, but you really have no idea. And it's not like he's producing at a high rate anyway to where it's even really worth it. And we've got a lot of guys that you can pivot to, not even pivot to, just make it so you don't have to consider him. Minnesota and Memphis, Adam. I am very curious to see where you stand on Karl Anthony Towns today. This Memphis team, look, they're not a good team, flat out, right? They're 4-point dogs. Timberwolves aren't a very good team either. 208.5 total. It's funny because we saw Jokic the other day, and a lot of people were pretty much like, "Oh, it's Jokic. No one, Jokic can't have a bad game." And thanks to a bunch of steals in the fourth quarter, he wasn't terrible, but he was pretty terrible. 41 points, pretty terrible from a fantasy standpoint. Really limited his rebounding. Only had 3 assists. That game featured 187 total points. Maybe we're on totally different pages here, but and even though I know for a fact that Karl Anthony Towns will be lower owned than Jokic, but I'm looking at it right now on DraftKings, and Jokic is projected to have 8% higher ownership than Towns. To me, that's not enough for me to just be like, all right, I'll take that ownership advantage and load up on Karl Anthony Towns when I have Nikola Jokic going up against Jahlil Okafor. Now let's hear your thoughts on it.
I'm there with you. In that initial, I have Towns projected for almost 58 DraftKings points, which obviously is really
Well,
good,
that's pretty good.
but still getting a lot less of him than Jokic. I came in right around that 12% mark, I think like 13% on that initial crunch, and I'm fine with that. It's not a great matchup. Towns is a great player in a great spot without Teague and Rose,
Mhm.
but I just think the spot's better for Jokic, and if the ownership is going to be even remotely close between the two of them, I'm fine being even with the field or a little over on Towns and being way over on Jokic as one of my highest owned players on the slate.
Yeah, and here's the truth. Like, Jokic doesn't have as many injuries to his team, and Will Barton's healthy, but this still isn't exactly a high usage starting lineup, right? Like, Paul Millsap is look at this dude's field goal attempts. Look at it getting include his free throw attempts, field goal attempts, so on and so forth. His usage is super low right now. Um, and who else do you want to throw in there? Torrey Craig. We could talk about Torrey Craig, or whether it's Beasley or Monty Morris or even Will Barton right now. Gary Harris questionable. Like, Nikola Jokic isn't exactly running the risk of not getting work in this
Right.
game, and never does. So, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
What were we going to say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think Towns is great. I think Jokic is a little bit better, and I think there's a ton of other good centers on the slate.
Right. Oh, and another thing, it's not like Jokic, especially on these dynamic pricing sites like DraftKings, where you see these salaries shoot through the roof. Jokic is only what, $300 more expensive than Towns, and on FanDuel, they're the exact same price. So you're
Right.
not getting the salary, the discount either. Where else do you look, if anywhere, with Minnesota today? Bayless has played well, or at least not per minute. Fantasy production has been solid based on the fact that he's playing huge minutes. But now, good old Isaiah Cannon will be making his Timberwolves debut. And you may be laughing at me saying, why would you even mention that? Well, Jared Bayless needs all the minutes he can get. And if Cannon comes in and plays 15 minutes, then Bayless sees fewer, and he's facing Memphis, and his price tag has come up. But I'll let you explain the rest and where you're at here with the Timberwolves.
Yeah, I think Cannon being there adds a little bit of risk to Bayless. I projected him to just take Terrell's minutes plus a few, but those few coming alongside Bayless. So I still have Bayless at 36 minutes. I have Cannon at 18 to 20. There is certainly a little bit more risk, though, because the Timberwolves could very easily take some minutes from Bayless, but I still think that he's fine. It's just not that I really need to get there all that much at 5K anyway. I was getting more Trey Burke. I was getting more. I'll probably get more Tyler Johnson now that we have Wade confirmed out. So yeah, Bayless is fine, but I don't think it's a huge priority.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, you look at what he's done since getting these elevated minutes, and he really hasn't been bad at all. I mean, he's giving you exactly what you needed, but at the same time, he's producing under a fantasy point per minute, not by a large mark. It's been pretty close to a 1 fantasy point per minute over these 4 games. But now you get a significant pace down spot against the slowest team in the league, Isaiah Cannon, and your price comes up from 3K flat to 36 to 44, now to 5,000. To me, there's just enough to get away from him here. I find it hard to see a way in that Bayless is really winning any lineups for me. Not to say he's definitely going to hurt me, but I would like to feel pretty confident that he was going to get as many minutes as he's been playing, because that's the only way I see him being all right, is if he does play 36 or more minutes tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Even if I dropped him to like 32 or 34, he becomes like really, really fringy.
Yeah. Anything for Memphis? I guess we'll talk about if Jaren Jackson plays, and then if Jaren Jackson sits, because that's a huge difference tonight.
Yeah, so obviously a big difference there. It's a fine matchup for Gasol. He's had a ton of success in it in the past. I don't care about that much anyway, but it's a good matchup. The price tag's fine. It's just that I'm having trouble getting to him when he's more expensive than guys like Okafor and Horford. He's close to Gobert and Nurkic. He's kind of just a left out guy for me in most of my lineups. Kyle Anderson on DraftKings is appealing at 4,500. I hate rostering the guy, but he's got point guard and small forward eligibility. He's cheap. He played 30 minutes in his first game back last game. I think he could get even more here. It would make sense for him too. So Kyle Anderson's the guy from Memphis I'm getting the most of. I do think that obviously the Jaren Jackson news is really big because we have him and JaMychal Green both questionable. If they both sit, you could see Ivan Robb join the starting lineup here. But what actually is really interesting to me is that last game we saw Joakim Noah.
Noah and Gasol. Is this what you're going to say?
Yep.
Noah and Gasol?
Yep.
I know. Crazy.
Yeah, we got 24 minutes from Joakim Noah, and like half of them were alongside Marc Gasol.
Let me ask you, when you were looking through that, did you not double take to make sure that it was lined up that Noah and Gasol were actually out there at the same time? Because I got my finger on the screen. I'm like, wait. Yeah. No. That didn't happen. And sure enough, it did more than once in that game.
No, I already knew it because when Green was ruled out, I played 58% Ivan Robb on the late slate that day. And I noticed pretty quickly that they were doing Noah plus Gasol lineups.
That'll do it. Forgive me for not paying close astute attention to that game as it happened.
Yeah, so I mean, but the thing is, so that happened, and obviously it's something weird. But if you're going to do that, this is the matchup you do it in. Like Taj Gibson and Towns, you can very easily run that matchup. So even with Jackson in right now, I have Noah at 20 minutes. If Jackson sits, I think you could see mid-20s again for Noah. Not that it's super appealing, but it's sure as hell going to be low owned, and it's really, really cheap.
I'm interested. The only thing is, I would love to see him at center playing those 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean, he'd still get his 12.
Right, of course, I'm
Yeah,
saying I would love if he was getting 20 minutes at the 5, I'd actually have him labeled as a very good value play even in 20 minutes. Sounds
and
crazy, but it's true.
well, here in this matchup, he kind of would be playing the 5 because I imagine he'd be with Taj, and you'd have Gasol chasing Towns around.
Yeah, could be true. What do you make if Jackson sits of JaMychal Green minutes? Because he played 7 minutes, off the bench against Indy, got hurt, and then missed the following game. If Jaren Jackson sits with food poisoning and we expect Noah to get, around I have him I think I have Noah at 18 minutes if Jackson sits, but just to go along with I'll say 20 minutes too, just for argument's sake. Uh, if that's the case, how many minutes do we see? And by the way, Omri Caspi is out, but how many minutes do we see JaMychal Green getting? And now that I don't know if you get any minutes at the 3, I mean, Anderson, Holiday, they're getting healthy outside of Caspi.
Yeah, so I mean, Green, I don't know that he plays. Like he apparently is actually pretty injured. That game
He's from what I saw is that he is expected to play.
oh, okay, I hadn't seen that news. Okay, then
He's
yeah, I think
probable now, yeah.
okay, then I assume he's good to go. It's just really scary because the game he played 7 minutes, he said that he was too injured to play, but that he
Right.
was trying to suck it up, and then it just didn't work out. So it's pretty scary, but I'll go ahead and project him for like 30 minutes if Jackson's out, just because I don't really know what else to do.
Yeah, neither do I. Following up on your Anderson discussion or your Anderson talk. First of all, did you see his final 20 minutes in that last game? Did you see what he did?
The final 20 seconds, yeah,
Yeah, sorry, I said 20 minutes. Yeah,
yeah.
the
I
final
cannot watch him play basketball for 20 minutes.
I can't watch the Grizzlies play
Yeah,
basketball for 20. That was one of the I mean, Conley drops it off to him. Perfect. Like, dude, first of all, I don't even know why he went to pull up there. If he just drove it to the rim, I get it. He's not someone that generally is driving and dunking over 2 players, but the seas parted. All he had to do was come up with like a floater 4 feet from the basket. And then oh God, it
I
was
love that he
so
made the
bad.
one from out of bounds.
I made it from over top of the back of over the backboard. Oh my! It was. I tweeted it by the way
Yeah,
earlier
that's what I
today.
thought.
If you didn't see it, head over to my Twitter. I promise you'll want to see it. My Twitter handle is right there. Laffy_D. Adams is shit my money DFS. Like if you missed that, it was one of the greatest or worst. It might be the worst 20 seconds of basketball I've ever seen from a single individual player.
It was painful
But
to watch.
oh, bad. Real bad. But here's the truth. He played 30 minutes in his first game back, despite JB Bickerstaff saying that he was going to be on a restriction. So I could see Anderson playing 33, 35 minutes easily tonight.
Yeah, so can I, and I
It's a
hate.
horrible feeling.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I know. I know. You kind of wish he was, the same price on DraftKings as he is on FanDuel. You wouldn't really have to consider him.
yep, yeah. I hate when Kyle Anderson's cheap.
I know. It's a brutal feeling. I don't think I'm paying for Mike Conley here. Are you?
Probably not. I think there's a better chance I get to Gasol, but really, it's just Kyle Anderson for me.
What a good feeling that is.
At least it is a good matchup. Like he's cheap in
Oh
a
yeah.
huge pace-off spot against a terrible defense.
Yeah, you're talking about a Timberwolves team that's averaging like 6 additional possessions per 48. And to be fair, most teams that the Memphis Grizzlies face are pace-up matchups.
Yeah, I meant like actual fast-paced team.
Of course. Well, that's what I'm saying. If I didn't, I mean, I'd say every matchup
Right.
because literally they play the slowest pace in the league. But I mean, when you're talking about like the top 10 teams, Minnesota is right around 10th in pace. So this is a very much a good spot for Anderson. And hey, not a narrative guy. Maybe he wants to prove himself after making a massive fool of himself against Denver. We'll see. That would be nice.
Or
New
he's
Orleans.
not going to shoot a single time.
That's also very possible. Oh God. I mean, it was so bad because he it's like it's like his brain wouldn't let his body shoot until he was out of bounds.
Yeah.
And he made it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was well, the out of bounds shot, there was like no pressure because it was like an impossible shot. So he could just not think to just throw it up there.
You're right. He saw daylight on the one at the top of the key.
Yeah.
And was like, oh God, I can't do it. It was brutal. If he made that though, and wasn't out of bounds, the one over the backboard.
Yeah.
Imagine how much of a hero he would be after being just like the brunt of the joke to the hero, all in
Right.
the span of 20 seconds.
Yeah, well, I thought that's what had happened originally, and I was kind of disappointed and kind of happy. I didn't really know how to feel when I realized he was out of bounds.
All right, let's keep it going. Denver and New Orleans. New Orleans at home here. They're 9-point dogs, 226.5 total. Hey, the Pelicans came into Houston. They were 11.5-point dogs, I think, on the road. They end up winning by 5. It was, Holiday did not shoot well, but he blocked 6 shots. Holiday had 6 blocked shots, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, got up 18 shots, still had 51.5 DraftKings points. Like, that's what you should expect from Holiday with all of these players. Yeah. I mean, you're literally talking about the starting lineup this year, which was, what was it? Mirotic, Davis, Elf, Holiday, and Etuan Moore. They're all out except Holiday, and Julius Randle's out. So you're looking at Darius Miller playing maybe 40 minutes again, Solomon Hill, Jahlil Okafor, Frank Jackson, Tim Frazier. Here's a fun one. Kenrich Williams played 30 minutes last game, Adam. I mean, what a shit show this is. But if we know one thing, it's that Holiday is going to get the work. There's no question. It's a second of a back-to-back, but this guy's been playing, top 5 in minutes in the league all year long. 1.64 fantasy points per minute with all of those aforementioned players off the floor this year. Small sample, only 79 minutes, but in more minutes with just Davis, Mirotic, and Randle off the court, it's about like 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So, Drew Holiday, you mentioned earlier that you liked him a lot. We compared him to Doncic, being that they're $100 separated on DraftKings and FanDuel, but the whole team is out.
Right, and their whole team's out, and then Denver's missing Murray. They're probably, I'm guessing, missing Gary Harris.
He can't get healthy.
Right, it's not, and they haven't been good defensively. It's not like they're playing Denver's a very good team, but it's not like they're playing a team that's been locked down defensively. They're not in Denver. I'm not like shying away from this game for any reason. So yeah, I mean, Drew, I think will be one of the highest. I think this team will be one of the highest owned teams on the slate, but I still really like them. All the things you said about Drew, it's really difficult not to like him, especially at a sub 9K price tag on DraftKings. You have Okafor at 6,600, who he's gonna have his hands full defensively against Jokic, but they can't bench him for defensive reasons. Like, they don't have an option. Diallo's not going to do it. The only thing, that you're really concerned about is him getting in foul trouble potentially. But other than that, we should see around 36 minutes from him again. He's been very, very productive. And it's just not a good defensive team for Denver right now. So I still like Okafor. Miller's still really cheap, playing monster minutes and, getting up some additional shots because they're missing everyone. And then you have the point guard situation where I do think that one's interesting, and I'll have exposure to both because they're both really, really cheap. But Frazier obviously was the one that you wanted to have last night. I got lucky and screwed up some lineups and had him in more lineups than I intended, and it worked out. But the one thing to take away from looking at the rotations in that game were that Frazier closed the game. But again, I think it had a lot to do with game flow there. I don't necessarily think that he plays more minutes or that he, gets those extra minutes in this game, because you saw the Pelicans go on a 14-4 run to close that game right around the time that Frank Jackson normally would check back in. So I'm not convinced that Jackson just doesn't play in the fourth quarter tonight. I think that that Jackson, if I had to guess, Jackson gets more minutes than Frazier, like around 28 for Jackson. So I like both of them. I'll have exposure to both, but I think that if I had to pick one, it would still be Frank Jackson.
Yeah, I think it's tough to guess. I mean, I don't dispute at all that Frank Jackson, it was around where he would have come back in, but man, it's difficult because you don't have really a good idea of who it's going to be. I mean, for all we know, Frazier ends up starting today. I don't think he will, but so. Let's put it this way. What do you have their minutes projected at?
So I gave Jackson 28. I gave Frazier 22. I don't necessarily think they play alongside each other, but it's possible if we get like a Beasley-Morris backcourt for Denver. And also, I kind of just wanted to make sure that I get exposure to both.
And the big question, so we saw Ian Clark last night play 18 minutes. And then we saw Kenrich Williams play 30 minutes. 30 minutes for Kenrich Williams. What do you have him? What type of run do you see him betting? Because he subbed in like 7 minutes or with about 7-8 minutes gone, 7.5 minutes gone in the first quarter, and then played all the way up until 4 minutes left in the second quarter. So he played about 12 minutes straight in the first half, and then he played 17 straight minutes to close out the game. Mind you, a game that they won against Houston. Kenrich Williams played 17 consecutive minutes to close it out.
I have him at 20. I have him and Hill both at 26 minutes. Not super confident in that, but Williams was great yesterday. He grabbed like 16 rebounds. Just really did a good job hustle wise, and it just seems like the kind of performance that on a really, really shorthanded team you would want to reward. So I'm going to go ahead and project him for a bunch of minutes again. At 3,100, maybe I get him in some lineups. Obviously not a lot, but the main thing is that I'm still not projecting Hill for like 34 or anything like that.
Yeah, neither am I. And you know what? Darius Miller, as horrible as it feels, the guy got 40 minutes yesterday. We have seen this time and time again when, even last season, when this team is dealing with extensive injuries, Darius Miller gets a lot of minutes every night. Yep. I expect him to play a lot of minutes again today. And you could say, oh, yeah, well, what if Solomon Hill gets more run? Well, if Solomon Hill gets more run, it could take some away from Kenrich Williams. I still think Miller gets a lot of minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I have Miller at 36 minutes just because I'm getting plenty of him that way. I don't need to give him 40. But, I don't really see a clear path to Miller not getting a ton of run here.
Yeah. So
if you want to, where it gets interesting with Miller is he's clearly too cheap. He's clearly a very good cash play because of the minutes. We haven't projected as the second highest owned guy on the slate. If you want to come in under the field on a very chalky jump shooter on the second half of a back-to-back that just played 40 minutes, go for it. But he's still a great point per dollar play. Outside of ownership concerns, there's no real reason to be getting away from a really cheap Darius Miller.
Yep. Right. And I mean, if Darius Miller is not in your lineup, look, he had that when you and I were battling over Twitter about that nonsense that you were, 37 fantasy points. Mind you, I played him that night. I think we all did. When Randall was ruled out, it was pretty much a certain, you kind of had to. What was it, 3 games ago?
Yeah, he was one of my highest owned players. I just wasn't happy about it.
Exactly. 37 fantasy points for Darius Miller. Few and far between. I don't care if you're averaging 36, 37 minutes a night. So that's all. But it's the honest to God truth is it's hard to get away from him. It's hard to get away from that when he's getting as many minutes as he is. So in terms of prioritizing these guys, who are your favorite plays from the Pelicans?
Drew, Okafor, like clearly at the top. Drew number 1, Okafor number 2. Then like a gap to Darius Miller, and then another gap to Jackson, Frazier, Williams.
All right. That's where I'm at as well. Actually, who did you have third?
Miller.
Okay, same. On the Denver side, I love Jokic. I love him. There's just no way that Okafor can contend with him. And I also have some interest in Barton. He's $6,500 on FanDuel at a bad small forward position. He played 36 minutes last game. I get that Barton has left a lot on the table, or left a lot on the court. Hasn't looked great, but if he plays significant minutes here, which I expect him to, and if Gary Harris is out, I think this is a pretty good spot. And you're talking about Barton going up against a backcourt consisting of guys like Holiday, who is a fine defender, but Tim Frazier, Frank Jackson, Ian Clark, whoever they decide to put it to 2. I have interest in Barton. Do you have interest in anybody from this Denver team not named Jokic?
Yeah, Barton. Regardless of Harris, Barton. because he should get to
Right.
start at point again. We saw almost 36 minutes last game. It's a nice favorable matchup here against the Pels, like you said. So I like Barton. I like that you can roster him at small forward also. Him and Winslow both, give you the opportunity to roster point guards at small forward. So I really like him. I really like Jokic. If Harris is out, which I'm expecting, then I think you see 30 plus minutes for Beasley at 4,200, which is nice. You see probably upper 20s for Monte Morris at 4,500, which is fine. So, those guys would become more appealing. And then also, I just need to, I guess, point it out because of how my crunches have gone on DraftKings. $3,900 Mason Plumlee at power forward is in a non-inconsequential number of my lineups right now.
Okay. I like it. Dave says, do we know if Barton's going to run the point? Yeah, who else would? I mean, really? Yeah, maybe you got a couple guys off the bench, but it's not Gary Harris. It's not Torrey Craig.
If you've ever,
but that's a little different.
Yeah, Jokic. But if you've ever seen Will Barton play basketball, just like imagine Malik Beasley trying to go over there and tell him he's running point.
Such a good point.
It's not gonna happen.
Such a good point. Oh yeah, he'd open-handed slap him right in the
right.
Jay Kelly 13 says Jackson or Frazier in tournaments. I think Adam just pretty much said what he's doing. You're gonna have some of both. Thinks Jackson gets more minutes than he did yesterday, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find them on the ownership projections now. So Jackson's projected at 12%. Frazier is at 9%. Yeah, I mean,
that's inconsequential.
Yeah, I was going to say whichever is the lower owned, but I would give the slight edge to Jackson, but I probably will have pretty similar amounts of both of them.
All right, and Dadler 40 says, by the way, this is in our Slack chat. If you want to check it out, it's for premium members. It's a very cool feature. Talking sports, basically channels for you name it. Sports betting, basketball, golf, MMA, NASCAR, NFL, soccer, football, basketball, college football, college basketball, everything. We got it all. Direct message, everything. So you can, access to all the guys at Awesemo and all the subs as well. If you want to check it out and you want to check everything else we have, you've heard us reference our Awesemo ownership projections, which are very helpful. Our NBA projections, golf projections, the lineup builder, our fantasy cruncher add-on, and Awesemo, Alex Baker, the guy whose name is on the site. He's the face of the site. All of his stuff, his rankings, his projections as well. You can do it all and get 50% off, half off your first month at awesemo.com. All you got to do is go to the homepage, AWESEMO, click join now, select your plan, and you get to the next page. You'll put your name in, take a couple seconds, and then you will click coupon code, put in Deeper Dive, all one word, Deeper Dive, not two, but one word, Deeper Dive, and you're good to go. And hopefully we'll see you there in Slack. Say hi. Let us know you're here. That's how you do it. 50% off your first month just by using the promo code Deeper Dive. Anyway, we had a question from Dadler in Slack chat saying, is 3 Pelicans too much in cash? Okafor, Drew, and Miller? No, I don't think it is.
I don't think so at all. Like they're clearly underpriced for their spots. We also have them projected as the 3 highest owned players on the slate. So in pretty much any way you want to attack a cash lineup, I think all 3 of them are guys that you should probably be starting with.
All right. Let's you want to move on or you want to keep this going? If you have anything else to put out on Jokic, fine. I've said my piece on him. I think he's the best overall player on the slate, and I'm not sure it's close.
I think it's close between him, Drew, and Doncic, but that's splitting hairs between 3 guys that I absolutely love. So no.
I love all of them as well. I just love Jokic a little bit more. All right. And if we get news on Harris, we'll be sure to let you know. I don't think that'll be the case while we're on, but it's possible. And Live Before Lock with Eddie and Josh, they're going to take you up to lock anyway and give you any of that breaking news as it hits. Sacramento and Atlanta. Here we get into the good stuff, Adam. 236.5 point total. Kings only 5-point favorites here. I want to get out of the gate. I want to talk about Marvin Bagley first. And I want to get your take on Bagley because looking over his numbers and, oftentimes projections are going to like this guy. I like him. I think he's a very good player per minute wise, slightly over a fantasy point per minute this season. But the playing time, if Bielitsa is healthy and actually active, he wasn't in that game against Toronto where Bagley saw all those minutes. Bagley's minute ceiling is like 28, 29 minutes. He has crossed the 40 fantasy point threshold once all season when he has played fewer than 30 minutes. So I guess my question is $5,400 on DraftKings. I don't think that's a bad price. 62 on FanDuel. It is a very good matchup. The pace is just insane here. But do we overstate Bagley's ceiling when really his minute ceiling seems to be capped when everyone is healthy?
Yes. So I still think that the price tag is fine. I think that this is one of the more volatile minutes.
On FanDuel too?
What is he on FanDuel?
62, 54 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm good on FanDuel. I like
good
him
as in no thank you.
No thanks on FanDuel. I like him on DraftKings. So like last game we only saw 19 minutes from Bagley, and that obviously is concerning. But there's a positive takeaway in that Harry Giles did not play in the second half outside of the last minute of garbage time. We saw Bagley actually getting the backup 5 minutes. Cauley Stein played most of the half, but when he didn't play, it was Bagley, and Bagley, played alongside him as well. I have Bagley at 26 minutes here, but I think it could certainly be less. I think that if he's going to be highly owned, which right now he's projected to be around 18% on DraftKings, I probably would come in around there or a little below. It's not a spot where I feel like I need to be over the field unless, he's going to be lower owned than that. But it's a good matchup. It's just it's that there's a lot of volatility in his minutes because the Kings just have a lot of healthy bodies right now.
Right. The problem though is this is what I was stating, and I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I talked about him in today's deep dive. I don't dislike him. But when we talk about volatility in minutes, and this is pretty much what I stated in the article, we're talking about volatility not like he might play 35 minutes or he might play 20. It's he might play 20 or he might play 29.
Yeah.
We don't really even have a wide range or a wide ranging minutes, a wide range of minutes when these guys are all healthy, unless there's foul trouble or unless Jaeger just loses his shit, which we've seen from time to time. But 29, 28 minutes right now when Bjelica is on the court pretty much seems to be what he's capped at, and that's definitely been less likely or a less common occurrence than when he plays 20, 23, or 24. That's all I was getting at.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. It's that the minutes range goes from really bad play to probably a good play. And it kind of just comes in, at any point on that spectrum.
Right. And not a really bad play to a potentially really great play. And there are some of those players in this league. You see, like Hassan Whiteside is one where we've seen 22 minutes and then 35 minutes. We know he can get there, but we don't know when it's going to happen.
So so here's an example: Trey Burke. If Trey Burke comes out and he plays, if Trey Burke plays really well tonight for the whole time he's on the floor, he probably plays like 34 minutes. If Marvin Bagley plays well for the whole time he's on the floor, he probably plays like 30, maybe,
like very maybe,
right, like 28.
That's where I'd put him at.
Yeah.
Maybe 29, 28, 29 tops. Like that's just from what we've seen. Could it change starting today, Adam? Sure. You never know. Maybe it changes starting today. He plays 33 minutes, and then throughout the next month, Bagley's playing 30-plus minutes a night. It's possible. It's just not what we've seen. That's all.
Exactly.
All right. We still have plenty to talk about with this team. The next game, not as much. So we'll spend some time here. Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, his minutes are trending back upwards, and it's nice to see that. I mean, for a while there, he was, sitting in that high 20, low 30 range, even in close games. Now he's seen 35, 36, 35 and 36 in 2 competitive games and a couple of blowouts. He lost minutes. What do you make of De'Aaron Fox in this home matchup against Atlanta?
I obviously really like the spot. Really like him in fast-paced games. He's just incredibly athletic, incredibly fast. So I like him. He's my second favorite guy on Sacramento. The minutes trending up is nice, like you said. Last game he played 32, but he lost about 2 to garbage time at the end. So I think that assuming this game stays competitive, you get around 34 minutes from him in a really nice spot. So I do like Fox quite a bit.
So you say he's your second favorite player. I find it interesting. He's my second favorite player as well, but in a different way, because I think on FanDuel, Buddy Hield would be my top player, where he's 6,500 and Bogdanovich is 6,600. And then on DraftKings, Buddy Hield is 7,200 and Bogdanovich is 5,500. And, Bogdanovich, if you look at his minutes, he's played, half of his minutes this month with De'Aaron Fox off the floor. And, definitely handles a lot of point guard responsibilities or facilitating responsibilities with Fox off the court. So I actually don't mind at all that Bogdanovich comes off the bench, with Iman Shumpert healthy. I just like him a lot more on DraftKings, where I'm getting him at a $1,700 discount than Hield. And on FanDuel, he's actually $100 more expensive than Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hield, playing big minutes and in a great spot here. If they're similarly priced, I'll take the extra minutes that Hield's most likely going to play over Bogdanovich.
Right.
But on DraftKings, where you get the huge price discount, and also Yogi Ferrell not playing as many minutes lately, which means more backup point guard minutes for Bogdanovich as well. He's one of my favorite plays on DraftKings overall, not even just for this team.
Yeah, agreed. So yes, Bogdanovich was your top guy from here. And then, right, Buddy Hield, that's just a mispricing on FanDuel.
Right.
6,500. Basically, he's the same price basically as Kent Bazemore. That's a little bit out of control.
Yeah.
What's your take on Willie Cauley-Stein?
I liked what we saw last game. He played a ton of minutes. He played 31.2 minutes, sat out the last 2 minutes of the game. We had been seeing his minutes kind of go down when Harry Giles was playing around 18 a game, but it seems like maybe that's not a priority for Yeager anymore in his constant rotation.
Two straight games of 31 minutes for Cauley-Stein.
Yeah, so it looks like we've moved past Harry Giles again, and Yeager's like constant rotation of not playing his rookies. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and project Cauley-Stein for like 32 minutes. It makes him another really appealing center option in a pretty nice matchup, a great game environment. So yeah, I would put him like behind Bogdanovich and really, really close to Fox.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Another thing that's interesting, I'm not a big home road splits guy. I find it curious though that if you look at Willie Cauley-Stein this year, his home road splits have been dramatic. Like 36 fantasy points per game at home, 28 on the road. But more so, his per minute production is significantly better at home. But even more so than that, if you look at his playing time, he's averaging 4 more minutes per game, almost 5 additional minutes per game at home. Take that for what it's worth. Maybe, potentially nothing. But he has been quite a bit better at home, not just in terms of production and minutes, but per minute production as well. And you're getting him at a pretty solid price.
Go
ahead.
It's a nice block upside spot for him too, with Trae Young being one of the league leaders in drives.
Yes, that's a good point. And another thing too, Atlanta just consistently turns the ball over at a ridiculous rate. So all of these guys, whether they're skilled at racking up steals and getting swipes or not, there are going to be a lot of turnovers in this game, which you'll take all those counting stats you can get,
which makes him on Shumpert a good value play.
Okay. Yeah, that's like the one thing he does well defensively, gets his hands in passing lanes. It's decent, it's solid defense.
Yeah, pretty good spot for a 3-and-D guy.
For sure. Talk to me about Atlanta here. I want to start. We don't have a ton of time, but John Collins. Initially, I liked him, but the minutes are dwindling right now. And, Taurean Prince is healthy. The team's getting healthy. I feel like 30 might be the new norm for Collins, and that's a little concerning.
Yeah, I don't have anyone from this Atlanta team as a priority, despite the fact that this is a really high-scoring game, because we're back to the team being healthy. Bazemore's back now with a 20 minutes cap. Last game, no one played more than 31 minutes. And, now you have Bazemore back too. You're just back to Lloyd Pierce being able to play all of his guys for like 28 to 30 minutes. And the price tags aren't really conducive to that. I think that probably from this team, Trae Young and Jeremy Lin would be my two favorite plays. Young just because I think he has the highest ceiling, and Lin because he's just really cheap.
Yeah, I won't even really add on to that. Young would be the guy I like most here. I think he's a perfectly reasonable play. Taurean Prince is getting a lot of minutes off the bench. He just hasn't been very good, but he's going to get a lot of three-point opportunities. So if you're desperate and you're trying to get very different in a fast-paced game where trying to get low ownership in this game where it's not going to be, Prince is one of those guys. But let's move on. I'll let you close it out because we got to go. And before Adam finishes this last game, I want to say if you enjoy the content we produce and you want to see more, hit us with the thumbs up, like the video. It's greatly appreciated and helps us out quite a bit, a lot actually. And subscribe. and hit the notification bell so you always know when our content's dropping. Utah and Portland. Adam, I'll let you run with this one. Not a whole lot I'm targeting here.
No, not a whole lot for me either. I like both centers. It's a nice matchup for Gobert in terms of blocks. Nurkic is just an absolute monster. Nurkic is questionable though. If he sits, you get some value with Zach Collins and potentially Myers Leonard. On DraftKings, you can go ahead and roster Nurkic because it's really easy to just swap him to either Damian Lillard or Gobert, who are both perfectly fine plays. So Nurkic, Gobert are the two I like the most from this game. Then Lillard. If Nurkic is out, you get value with Collins.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks as always for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. I appreciate you helping us grow this channel as well. And of course, the Deeper Dive. Stick around. Eddie and Chris coming up next. Deeper Dive up till 7:30 p.m. lock. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Same spot, same time on the Deeper Dive.
Shit, I hit the button wrong. Good show.